Thoth's forbidden technique to activate your inner vision and unlock ancient spiritual sight. There's something you've always known, felt, but never quite named. Not something you learned, not something you were taught, but something already woven into your body, your breath, your quietest thoughts. A vision, a sense, a way of perceiving the world that once felt natural until it didn't. You've already started using this technique, the old teachings whisper. You just didn't realize it. And maybe you didn't. Maybe you called it intuition or déjà vu. Maybe you felt something shift behind your eyes as a child, watching the sky too long or closing your eyes during music. Maybe you sensed things before they happened, but no one else did, and so you let it go. But it never left. Why did we forget? What pulled us away from this quiet knowing? That's what we'll explore together. Not to chase something new, but to return to something ancient. To follow the thread that Thoth, the keeper of hidden wisdom, has left in our memory. You don't need to believe. Just remember. You may not remember when it began, because it didn't start with a ritual or a book, or a guru's voice echoing through incense and silence. It began with a quiet whisper, a moment when something around you felt off. No explanation, no proof, just a subtle shift, like you were seeing the world through a different lens, even if only for a breath. Maybe you felt it while walking into a room that made your skin tighten, even though nothing seemed out of place. Or in a conversation where someone smiled, but you could sense the weight behind their words. It's that quiet knowing, that sense that what you see isn't all there is. That's not imagination. That's perception reorganizing itself. And it means something important. Your inner vision has already started to awaken. The third eye isn't a fantasy or a dramatic flash of enlightenment. It's a shift in how you relate to reality. Not through your five senses, but through awareness itself. It's like your consciousness begins to develop a new sense, a sense of subtle energy, of truth that hides behind appearances, of signals you didn't notice before. And it doesn't require years of meditation or giving up your life. It starts with something deceptively simple: attention. When your focus drifts just for a moment to that space between your eyebrows, something begins to change. Not because the point itself is magic, but because it's a doorway. That gentle pressure, that warmth, that flicker of violet light or deep blue haze behind closed eyes, it's your body responding to awareness. Not imagination, response. You're not learning something new. You're reactivating something ancient, biological and spiritual at once. Your pineal gland, nestled deep in your brain, has light receptors. Your consciousness, even deeper, has memory of seeing beyond what eyes can see. Some people describe it as colors shifting in the dark. Others say it's a clarity that cuts through confusion like sunlight through fog. What matters is not what it looks like, but what it allows. The ability to trust that subtle knowing again. That moment of something's not right, or something's calling me, and this time to follow it. You don't need permission. You don't need proof. The signs are already there. The sense of time slowing during stillness, the way music suddenly paints colors in your mind, the way your forehead tingles when you hear truth. That's not a symptom, that's a signal. You've already started. There's a world that lives just beneath what we see. It doesn't demand attention, it waits. Quiet, constant, subtle, like the hum beneath music or the warmth behind light. Most people walk through it every day without ever noticing, like moving through wind without realizing it's shaping everything around them. But if you pause, truly pause, not to search, but to sense, you'll realize that something's always been there. You're not imagining it. It's not a metaphor. This vibrational field is real, and your body, your consciousness, already knows how to touch it. That first connection isn't loud. It doesn't come with a jolt. It feels more like remembering than discovering. You bring your awareness to the space within you, not to force or grasp, but simply to notice. The beating of your heart, the subtle tension in your fingertips, the gentle pull of your breath. That's where it begins. Subtle energy doesn't respond to force. It responds to attention, still, soft, non-demanding attention. Like sitting beside a wild animal and letting it come closer, not because you called it, but because you stopped trying to control the moment. When you bring that quality of awareness to your inner landscape, you begin to perceive what was always there. The energy moving around your head, the shift in temperature near your third eye, the way some thoughts feel like ripples rather than words. This isn't theory. People around the world have described it feeling a buzzing between the eyebrows, like a thread of light being pulled forward. Others sense movement around the crown, or a sudden presence in the room even when alone. These aren't hallucinations. These are the first signs that your perception is crossing a threshold. You begin to realize your body is not just matter, it's a field, a transmitter and a receiver, tuned often unknowingly to a frequency most ignore. And as you start tuning in, the world shifts. Colors feel richer. Words carry resonance. Silence becomes alive. In this space, seeing doesn't mean using your eyes. It means perceiving with your being, feeling with your whole awareness. You don't need to do anything extraordinary. You just need to feel what's already happening with no judgment, no agenda. That alone changes everything. This is the subtle, energetic world, silent but always there. And now, you're beginning to hear it. Close your eyes, not to block the world out, but to turn toward the light within. Now breathe, not like you usually do, not to survive, but to awaken. This isn't just breathing, it's a remembering. There's a technique older than language, passed quietly through lineages that understood the body as a portal. Breath was never just oxygen, it was spirit, movement, intelligence. And when guided with intention, it could open a doorway between what's seen and what's waiting to be seen. Begin here. Place your awareness at the center of your forehead. Imagine a small sun resting there, behind the skin, behind the bone. With each inhale, imagine that sun growing brighter. With each exhale, it radiates gently into your mind, into your chest, into the space around you. You don't have to force it, just allow it. One breath, the sun warms. Another, the warmth becomes light. Another, the light begins to pulse in rhythm with your heartbeat, and slowly something opens. This is how the portal works, not with dramatic visions or lightning bolts from the sky, but through presence, through rhythm, through trust in the intelligence of your breath. You're not calling something and you're clearing what blocks it from being noticed. Ancient mystics knew this well. They spoke of three main elements that, when aligned, would awaken spiritual sight: breath, attention, and inner space. Align them, and your perception changes not as a metaphor, but as a lived experience. You begin to see with more than eyes. In this state, some see colors behind closed eyes, vivid and shifting, like galaxies turning. Others feel a clarity emerge, a calmness so deep it's almost electric. The point isn't to chase visuals. The point is to feel the opening, to recognize that something sacred has begun to move through you, and it's important to stay grounded here. If the energy rises too fast, you may feel dizzy or spaced out. That's why grounding is essential. After breath work, take a moment to place your hands on your belly or press your feet into the floor. Drink clean water. Touch something natural. Remember, you are opening a gateway, not escaping your body. Sound can help too. Soft frequencies, singing bowls, or even low, resonant music can guide the breath and calm the mind. Let the sound be a bridge between your inner world and your body's rhythm. There is no perfect way to do this, only presence. And once you've opened the door, you'll never forget where it is. Somewhere along the way, the sacred became misunderstood. Breathing became routine. Stillness became laziness. Vision, true inner vision, was pushed aside, labeled as fantasy or illusion. But long before it was called spiritual, it was simply natural. Part of you, part of being human. This isn't magic. It's not some mystical power reserved for the chosen. It's a biological and energetic function, an ancient technique built into the fabric of your nervous system, quietly waiting for your attention. Science has begun to catch up with what ancient cultures always knew. The pineal gland, often called the seat of the soul, sits deep within your brain. It contains light-sensitive cells, photoreceptors, just like your eyes. But it doesn't see sunlight. It perceives something softer, the light within. This gland responds not just to biology, but to rhythm, to intention, to silence. When you breathe with awareness, when your thoughts grow still, when your inner landscape becomes spacious, that's when it wakes up. That's when the inner vision begins to glow. Brain waves begin to shift. Alpha gives way to theta. You're not asleep. You're not fully awake. You're somewhere between, exactly where this vision lives. And many of you have felt it before. A comment from someone watching this journey said, "I've had this feeling since childhood. I thought it was just me." That feeling, that soft hum of knowing, that sense of connection when the world feels both near and far, that's not imagination. That's remembrance. And no, you don't have to believe it. You don't have to adopt a new philosophy or chant in a foreign tongue. All you have to do is feel. Drop the layers of needing to understand. Let your awareness move inward. Not to think, but to listen. This technique doesn't belong to any religion. It's not owned by any culture. It belongs to your biology, your spirit, your breath. And when you allow it, it begins to reveal itself gently, quietly, undeniably. You're not learning something new. You're remembering something ancient. There comes a moment not marked by time or sound when the veil begins to dissolve. It doesn't tear dramatically. It softens, fades, and suddenly you realize you were never just living in one world. You've always been in between. You've walked city streets while sensing something ancient behind every glance. You've sat in stillness and felt like the walls themselves were breathing. You've closed your eyes to sleep and seen more than dreams, entire galaxies, swirling just behind your lids. One viewer wrote, "I see galaxies before sleep." And maybe you felt that too. Not hallucination, not fantasy, but memory, recognition. A part of you that has always seen, waiting for you to notice. This is the threshold. Not dramatic, but profound. A sense that you no longer belong entirely to what's visible. You begin to feel the space behind reality, the texture of energy beneath words, the pull of meaning in random patterns. You're not broken. You're becoming aware, but awareness is not always easy. When your spiritual sight awakens, your old framework doesn't always know how to hold it. Emotions rise, confusion, a sense of standing in two worlds, one of routine, the other of revelation. And it can feel like too much. That's why grounding isn't just useful, it's sacred. Take your shoes off. Let the soles of your feet meet the earth. Place your palm over your lower belly and breathe deep, slow, patient. Drink water, not to hydrate but to anchor. Light a candle and watch it flicker, not as ritual but as reminder. You are still here. And that's exactly where you're meant to be. These hidden abilities, intuition, energetic sensitivity, inner vision, they are not new. You've used them before, even if unconsciously. But now they're yours to own, to cultivate, to live with gently and clearly. Don't be afraid of the in-between. That's where magic begins. You felt the spark. The doorway has opened. But what now? That question echoes through so many comments. How do I keep this alive? Not just during meditation, not just when the world is quiet, but in the mess and motion of daily life. The truth is, inner vision doesn't need special conditions. It doesn't vanish when the noise begins. It simply waits for a gentle invitation. And that invitation can start each morning. Before you open your eyes fully, take a breath. Not to wake up, but to return. Let your hand rest on your heart or forehead, wherever the energy feels present. Inhale through your nose, slow, quiet. Exhale even slower. As you breathe, imagine light forming behind the brow, a soft glow, like sunrise inside the mind. This light doesn't need to be vivid or perfect, just sensed, trusted, seen without sight. Some find it helpful to speak a quiet phrase like, "I return to clarity," or "I see with more than eyes." It's not about magic words, it's about anchoring your intention, reminding yourself that perception is a choice. And your choice is to see from within. You can enhance this practice with sound. Soft music, ambient tones, nature recordings, or singing bowls can act like a bridge, gently guiding your nervous system into resonance. One viewer shared, "Music helps me feel my third eye more clearly than silence." That's not a flaw. That's intuition choosing what works. Visualization helps too. You might picture yourself surrounded by a sphere of light, or walking through a forest where each breath reveals a new color, a new clarity. Don't try to control the vision. Let it unfold like a dream you're still half awake in. And when the day pulls you outward, come back to your breath. Even one conscious inhale can recenter you. While walking, washing dishes, waiting in traffic. The goal isn't escape, it's integration. Bringing inner vision into the fabric of your life, one breath at a time. This isn't about chasing transcendence. It's about living slowly enough to see what's always been there. You haven't learned something new. You've remembered something ancient. This inner vision, This quiet light that now flickers behind your awareness, it's always been there. Like a home just beyond the fog. Like a name you used to answer to in dreams. You are not separate, you never were. Each breath, each moment of silence, each pause in the noise is a return to clarity, to stillness, to the part of you that knows without needing to explain. You don't need to rush or prove or grasp. Just keep walking with this light. Let it guide your steps, shape your days, soften your presence in the world. And when you're ready, when something deep stirs again, there will be another door, another teaching, another whisper from Thoth calling you back inward. For now, breathe. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to see. You are allowed to simply be.